Hello, this is the Torg Eternity Delphi Council Debriefings, where the storm has a name. We are your hosts, Leamon, Jay, and Mark, and today we will be doing the Orrorsh Cosm cards 1 through 10. So this is part 1 of a two-parter. A couple of things I wanted to mention before we dive in. Do email us at torgdcd@gmail.com. We didn't have any emails, but when we do get emails, we read them for the next episode. And if there's questions, we answer the questions and we're always happy to do that. So again, that is at torgdcd@gmail.com. The other thing that I wanted to announce is this episode is our 50th Delphi Council debriefing episode. That does include the brief ones, but 50, that's pretty cool, that I think. So thanks, both of you, for Mark's been with us at the beginning, and Jay came in to replace JM. So Jay replaced JM. And we've been...
replace him.
You stand in a swap, something like that. But we're just really happy to keep this thing going. And the last thing I did, hopefully it doesn't happen, but if you hear some weird beeping noises or sounds that sound like USB being plugged in and connected and reconnected and stuff like that, I've been having some computer issues right before we started recording. So that is me personally disconnecting and reconnecting to use Torg Eternity rules, and I just don't know what's going on, and we need to get this recorded. So sorry if
GodNet is on to you.
Yes, like 50th episode, we will make sure that something goes strange. So having said that, let's go ahead and dive into these Cosm cards. So we are doing Orrorsh. So Orrorsh, a lot of the Cosm cards, I guess before we get into the actual things, a lot of these Cosm cards, or a number of them, have corruption tests. As when you play it, to get a certain advantage, you must take a corruption test. So I figured that discussing what is a corruption test and what happens in it is something that we should go over. So anytime you're required to make a corruption test, you make a willpower roll. And if you succeed, fine, nothing happens. And if you fail, then your charisma attribute is lowered by 1. And if it gets lower than a 5, you've been corrupted, or your character has become corrupted, and you become an NPC and start with a new character. And that is kind of the insidious ways that the Gaunt Man and his reality of Orrorsh takes the shining exemplars of goodness and light and all that is Storm Nighty, and becomes corrupts it into becoming one of his minions. So that's the mechanical effect of what happens. Anything to add to that, either one, Jay or Mark? Or is that pretty much...
Mechanically, that is what happens.
Okay.
Mechanically it's what happens. In organized play, when you start a mission, you get a chance to do, like last week we talked about requisitions and streetwise, right? Sometimes people have unspent XP, and it's up to the GM, but typically I'm not one to, when they finally, once we got the mission going, realize, oh man, I'm in Orrorsh, I probably ought to have an add or two in willpower, and decide at that moment to spend their XP into willpower. I'm like, you already got the act started, so maybe let's do that at the end of the act or at the beginning. But sometimes I'll toss that out there at the beginning of the act and say, hey, you guys are going into willpower and corruption, that's a thing. And if they don't pick up on the hint, well, okay.
I always like using just random corruption tests as a game master to tempt my players, but that's more of an Orrorsh mechanic and not a Cosm card specific. But that's basically what corruption tests do. So having said that, let's get into number one. Number one appropriately named Damned, because at some point you'll probably come across a chance of being damned in Orrorsh. And this says, take 1 to 3 possibilities from another player character, make a corruption test at a penalty equal to the number of possibilities taken. So, Jay, your thoughts of Damned?
I don't really see this one getting used very often. I have talked before about how my players love playing cards that mess each other up, but stealing possibilities is kind of past there.
It's the line.
That's over
It's
the line.
Except the thing is, realistically, you don't have to steal anything. If you're low on possibilities and someone else agrees to it, you can, take it. So you don't have to steal it per se, especially if someone else has gotten a romance or something and it's just like flush with possibilities. The tricky part is, as Leamon pointed out, a lot of things here are going to require corruption tests, and a lot of players are super corruption test averse and will refuse to make them regardless. I do have one to organized play character with an extremely high willpower, so I've been making them like crazy, but I know that there's always that mishap that's lurking. So a lot of people won't make them at all unless they have a second chance card in their hand. So things like this tend to get not used very often. I like it, but it just doesn't seem to come up very much because of the harsh nature of corruption tests at the moment, and like the consequences for failing it. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people kind of min-max themselves down to a charisma of 5 to start with. So unless it's a face character, and either one of those characters don't want to lose a point of charisma regardless. Either you're turned into an NPC or you're weaker at your actual whole focus. So the benefit for making a corruption test needs to be really good, and this one isn't quite that high. This is a good one that if you're the GM and you know that a player got it, you can constantly egg them on with it. But yeah, it depends on your play group. If they like to gamble a lot, then maybe they'll just spend possibilities and then use this. At the very least, you get 1 possibility so you can at least boost the corruption test if you need to, but then it's kind of why bother.
Mark, your thoughts on Damned?
So it's not in my favorite list. It is 100% in the flavor of Orrorsh. No question there. But I'm with Jay that it's not one that comes up that often. To organize play, especially on the stream, we've got a number of characters that are built for corruption tests. In fact, they let me get that Orrorsh possibility, and that they don't need any other. They got 1 Orrorsh possibility. They don't need any more because they're designed to spend it and recall it and spend it and recall it, and corruption tests are not a thing. But like you said, the mishap is always lurking, so it is always a gamble. I see it more as a transfer with a catch. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it. That's how I've seen it played. The majority of times I've seen this card played is that someone's low on possibilities and they have this card, and someone else has a number more than a positive number of possibilities, greater than 1, and this person, whoever has it, needs, like they've just gotten hit and they've got to have a possibility because they can't soak, or they need to boost a soak because they can't take the wounds or whatever. So like, look, I'm sorry, I got to take some possibilities, and you got the most. So it is what it is. Otherwise, I'm getting taken out. That's really the only time I've seen it played. I haven't seen people be as averse to the corruption. I guess there's 2 camps as far as corruption is concerned. People who haven't even looked into it and haven't considered it and remember it from classic Torg, or just the sound of corruption test and like, oh no, I don't want any of that. And those people who have looked into it and understand the full mechanic of it, and they're not really built. They're like, yeah, I do it, but I'm not really built for it. Or they've got a character that's built for it 100%, and they're like, oh yeah, all day. I do all the things with corruption because I don't care. So, it's fun. but it's just kind of middle of the road for me.
Yeah, I would agree with both of you on that. If somebody has a lot and the person who happens to have this card doesn't have a lot, then it is kind of a transfer with a negative catch. If you have transfer, then that would work better. The one thing that I just thought of as we were talking about this, it usually doesn't happen in like organized play, but in a home game, if you have a group of Storm Knights that is going around to different, different realities and doing missions and collecting the different flavored reality possibilities, this would be a way to get one of those possibilities. Like maybe I need a Living Land or Nile or some other. I really want that magic item Isle. Yeah, the corruption test is hard. As Jay pointed out, some people just won't do it. But there are some neat tricks that you can work with it. It's just I'm not sure if those neat tricks of being in the case where you can get a different reality possibility from somebody else is how often that's going to pose or be
I guess if you were one of those characters that likes to use the Orrorsh possibilities because you don't care about corruption, you can use that at the end of an act to grab someone else's Orrorsh possibilities.
Right.
So you could start the next session with 3 Orrorsh possibilities and never need anything else.
Or like you said, if you wanted to get an Eilish possibility, because
but I was thinking specifically if you're making that Orrorsh corruption person, this is a way to get more of those.
But when
because they don't have a negative, unlike a lot of other possibilities.
Right.
Yeah. When you mentioned the Eilish possibility, that got me thinking about order of operations on this. So it says take 1 to 3 possibilities from another player character, period. So I'm assuming you've got them.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
You've taken them and you've got them. Now you make a corruption test at a penalty equal to the number of possibilities taken. It doesn't say that if you fail that corruption test, you can't. It just says make one.
Right.
You've taken it, make one. And so you fail the corruption test. You still got these possibilities. It sounds like you could take the possibilities and use the possibilities on that corruption test. But here's my question in the order of operations. Let's say you've rolled your high starting number that's exploded into the 20s, and you've rolled your hero and you've rolled your drama, and there's an Eilish possibility on the board, and you want to put some magic into something, and you've got the cards to pull that off. I pop this card, I'm in the middle of my roll. I play my Cosm card because there's no timing on these, right?
Right.
And so I get those 3 possibilities. I make my corruption test because order of operations, I'm doing this as an interrupt, kind of as an interrupt. We don't really have interrupts, but
it's on
you
the
know
stack.
what I mean.
For free action.
So, yeah. So I get that. And now I have an Eilish possibility, and now I go back to my high 40s, high 50s, whatever, and throw my Eilish possibility in that. That sounds like that's Jake based on this card.
Yeah, that's something as a game master I might point out too, just to have the corruption test get rolled, because
you could grab his Eilish possibility and maybe make magic. I don't know.
And get a glory out of it. I mean,
get a glory out of it. That's right.
Doesn't that
Isn't that worth corruption?
Yeah. So. Yeah, and seriously, that's what I think a lot of the corruption stuff is, because a lot of the lore and some adventures and stuff go in that people going and trying to do a good thing and being required to make bad, difficult choices and it becomes an end justifies the mean type thing.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, in that way. So again, I really like this card and the flavor, as Mark said. I just see it being very niche, as well as a lot of people just wouldn't want to do it because of it being a corruption test. But as a game master, as Jay said, and I noticed a player with this card, I would be coming up with ways to
Yeah, but notice, this, like we were talking about before we started, this is not the card that, it's all or nothing. If you don't have a spellcaster, you don't get nothing. You just sit on a card that doesn't do anything. This card, even though it's not in my middle of the road stuff, it's, in my opinion, it's better than the cards that are like, if you have a spellcaster, you can play this on a spellcaster. You don't have any spellcasters, so you're just sitting there holding a card you can't do anything with. Some of them say, if you don't, then swap it out, but others don't. This one is still usable.
Right. So, middle of the road, great flavor, and I can see some actual decent uses with it. So let's move on to 2, Temptation. Play to make any one skill favored for the remainder of the scene. Make a corruption test. So, Jay, your thoughts on Temptation?
It's kind of in the exact same spot, I think, for me, because favored is kind of like in between a +1 and +2 bonus ish. So favored isn't actually like a huge deal. Oftentimes, characters will have already found a way to become favored in an important skill for them. And half the time, favored you don't even need. Like, you can make yourself favored, then you roll well, and I didn't need it, so it doesn't matter. But this is for an entire scene.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a big old research scene, this can really potentially help with that. Or if there's a DSR, or multiple DSRs, as some people like to do, that focus on 1 or 2 skills, then this would help for that. And it's not for your skills, it's for, like, it makes a skill favored. So anyone doing that skill, I would presume. So you probably want to be careful as well, because enemies might benefit from that as well. If you make unarmed combat favored, suddenly all those zombies attacks are favored as well. But yeah, it's very dependent on what's going on, but it could be handy. The nature of favored means it could end up doing nothing. So it's a bit of a gamble for a corruption roll, in my opinion.
Mark, your thoughts on Temptation?
I have always disagreed with the mechanical statement that the rules make that favored is a +1 kind of thing. I think favored is a fantastic and a much higher than a +1 or +2. I love favored from the standpoint of being a player. If I could be favored over getting a +1 or a +2 on something, I would take that all day long, because I love the fact that if I rolled a 2, I can favor. I can try again. We see it all the time in the stream. You favor into a 3 or a 4, something stupid like that, or you get a 6 and you favor into a 5, whatever. But as a player, I love the opportunity to pick that die up and roll it again. I love that. And I would rather have that than a +1 or a +2, because when I need a +3 and all I got is a +1 or a +2, favored looks a lot better now, right? Now, granted, the +2, if all I need is +1 and I got a +2, I'm golden. I don't need any more, and then there's no chance involved. There's no 1, there's no 2, there's no rolling less, whatever. But this Temptation, I think, is between the 2 cards we've talked about so far, I like this one better than the last one, just because, as Jay pointed out, everybody gets it. Mm-hmm. You've just decided what skill is now favored for everybody. And if you're doing a chase, and it's a car chase, or it's a whatever skill you're using for the chase, you've just made favored. Now, also, as Jay pointed out, that's now good for the bad guys. So, the rule of unintended consequences, you ought to know better on that one, because we told you now. So now you know. Think about that before you play this. But it's fantastic because it makes that one skill, DSR, whatever, for the entire scene. So be strategic about playing this one, and you'll come out ahead.
Yeah, I would say look at all the gears that do favored, and you wouldn't use this card for something that you could get a gear for or something like that. But there are those skills. I mean, a magic user or somebody with faith, psionics even. It doesn't say it has to be within the axiom, because Orrorsh is very good at corrupting other axioms and other realities, so that's something that to also consider. But yeah, I agree. It's one of those where you're going to have to weigh the consequences and the cost of that corruption test with the everybody's favored, the threats and the Storm Knights. But it again fits the Orrorsh flavor, so that's always good and what I like about the Cosm card. So let's move on to 3, Ominous Portents. The party happens upon a grisly discovery or sees a dark omen of some kind for the rest of the scene, or the next if the GM feels it is too near the end of the current scene. Die rolls from possibilities stand as rolled. they aren't at least a 10, so they count more like an up rather than a possibility. But all Storm Knights gain 3 possibilities. So, Jay, what are your thoughts on Ominous Portents?
This is a very good card. But I have seen groups completely screw themselves over with it. You also have to be firm. No, you can't just play this during the briefing. It has to be sort of once things have started and there's actually some danger. It's actually fit in very thematically every time I've seen players play it in, able to do something spooky. But the 3 possibilities go a lot quicker when they only count as ups. So you don't get as much bang for your buck out of them, but you've got a bunch of them, and you could still soak. So, right. I mean, using those extra 3 to soak, you don't really care about the lack of the boost. So yeah, this one's really good, I find.
Mark, your thoughts on Ominous Portents?
I love this card. As a GM, this is a great GM card to me, and I'll tell you why. From my standpoint, I like to do something that's not actually, it's hinted at on the card, but it's not, like, it doesn't say it. I like to use the title Ominous Portents every time somebody plays one of those possibilities that isn't an actual, minimum of a 10. It's whatever it is, and they roll that possibility. I like to give them that portent, and so I like to look at what's coming up in the next in the rest of the scene they're in, and then the next scene and the next scene, or whatever the act is, and drop those portents to them when because we're using Storm Knights use the possibility, and they go and they reach out and grab what's possible and change what's happening into something that's a possible future, and in so doing, manipulating that energy and pulling it back to themselves, they brought a little something extra this time, and they get this headache, a little, maybe a nosebleed or something like that, as an image of the future drifts to them. And so you give them, as the GM, you give them a little something extra. Yeah, they're getting kind of screwed over with an up. Yeah, give them a little flavor of something. You don't have to give away the game, right? You don't tell them the big secret or whatever, but hint at a dark room with 2 glowing eyes, because that there's a vampire or a werewolf or Gospog or something coming, or maybe many glowing eyes in the forest, whatever. And now they don't know when it's coming, but they know it's coming. To me, that's Orrorsh.
So yeah, I like this because it's 3. I think if it was 1 or 2 possibilities, it would sharply decrease its value. Getting 3, especially when a whole group is getting low on possibilities, and they don't want to do corruption tests, and they don't want to make the lights go out, like we'll get into later. This is a more safe option. The trade-off, though, is it's not just those 3 possibilities that don't count. It just says any die rolls from any or it says possibilities. So
for the next scene or 2.
Right. So if you can get through that amount of time, having 3 is better than having nothing. And I think this is just much easier to use and than the other ones that we were coming up with.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't there something in, I don't know if it was the law of corruption or law of perseverance, something about the Gaunt Man's minions not being affected by his negatives, like they don't
soak rolls. They don't
soak.
Yeah, they soak at 10 instead of 15.
Yeah. So
right.
would you give this penalty to villains as well? Because it just says possibilities.
So villain possibilities. So let's see. Die rolls from possibilities stand as rolled. They are. Yeah, I guess if you wanted to take that, then yeah, I would say that their possibilities would stand also. They still would get the normal soak. They just would get the up version instead of the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. If they boosted with possibilities, they would get the up version, or would they get the full thing because they're...
Well, like the last card, we said the skills work for both villains and heroes. I would say this works. This is the same way.
But I understand.
It's also kind of a discount maelstrom.
Yeah. But I understand what you're saying, because there are times where we have stated that the big one is the Shroud of Darkness that gives bonuses, but then we're like, hey, they can't. It's not written that they can see in the dark. So basically, officially, we said yes, they can see in the dark and get their bonuses. Otherwise, or that when they're soaking, they don't have to roll the 15 because the Gaunt Man's like, yeah, whatever. This I see is it's tempting the Storm Knights. So the Storm Knight, we like Mark said, it's not just the Storm Knight thinking game mechanics, but the Storm Knight is giving some impressions and stuff. And they hear a little whisper, or they see the portent and they see something and they read into it, and again, I love tempting as a game master. Hey, yours are only going to count as up, but theirs are only going to count as up too. So don't you want to spend so. It's
well, but see that first sentence though, I could see how you would read this. It says the party happens upon a grisly discovery or sees a dark omen of some kind. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it sets the stage. Words have meaning. The intent may have been that only the party's possibilities have this occur. Right. And I can see how a game master would read this card and say, well, only the party saw the grisly thing, and so only the party has had this effect occur to them. Mm-hmm. I can also, because it doesn't say, like the other one doesn't, right? I can see the game master going the other way. So,
game masters, this will be one of those, as we've stated before many times, game masters, you will have to make your choice on which way you do it.
Table variants.
Right. Let your players know, though.
I might even be so inclined as to make it so Orrorsh threats aren't affected. But any enemies from other realms still are.
Oh, that might, that might be a happy medium there. I might like that one.
So yes,
you're the rule of two, and you're throwing somebody else at them in Orrorsh, and now they're dealing with Pan Pacifica guys running around. And you're like, boom, everybody's boned, and then the Nightmare shows up, and he's like, "Hey boys, I'm here to party," and it doesn't affect him.
So fun card. I like it. So let's move on to 4. Jump Scare. The GM rolls a die. Odd. The scare was merely a frightened cat or other harmless trigger. Even. The threat is real and some insidious thing attacks. All Storm Knights gain 1 possibility. Jay, your thoughts on Jump Scare?
We kind of briefly touched on this previously.
Right.
But this is a really good one.
On the Living Land, is it like, what was that sound or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I think this is a really good one. It only gives 1 possibility, but it doesn't say what the threat has to be. It's an insidious thing. It could be anything. So the GM doesn't have to make it crazy. The GM can totally roll behind the screen and just say they rolled odd, if they really want. 1 possibility, a free possibility for everyone is not much, so it's not like unbalanced or anything. And if they've been just rocking through everything, you could use this as an excuse to put the fear of God in them with some kind of horrible creature. It's totally good. But you don't want to do that the first time someone plays this. I would almost recommend to always make the first time somebody in your group plays this and make it so it's nothing, so that they don't shy away from playing it in the future.
They're not the cat really that jumped on the hot stove and never jumps on the stove.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mark, your thoughts on Jump Scare?
So I wish I had thought about this when we were talking about the other one in Living Land, and I didn't, because I don't do it there. I do it and I'm going to have to implement this. I like to take, as Jay said, I like to roll that die behind the screen or where they don't see. And I use the number on the roll, for 2 things. 1, it tells me if I'm going to let the odd even thing determine this one, because you can absolutely pick if you want to. If you're GM, you as Jay said, they're rocking through everything, throw something at them. And it's 1 possibility, sure. So, make it appropriate for, as Leamon likes to say, I don't go pick a threat that's a 1 possibility threat. I pick a threat that they can deal with that's 1 possibility for whoever that group is, which could change based on alpha, beta, gamma, whatever clearance they are, how easy or hard things are. But what else I use that die roll for is if I roll that, let's say I roll uh, let's say I roll a 5 or a 6 rather. No, we'll use 4. We'll jump around. Let's use 4. So I roll it as a 4. It's going to happen, but I'm going to throw 1, 2, 3 things at them that could be the jump scare and the inciting event that leads to something else, but isn't, because they put that out on the table, put it in the center of the table. So I'm just going to leave that there as a friendly reminder, and then kick back and then throw something at them that, like, you hear the door creak open slowly, but you can't see a hand, and you're like, what's that? And it's nothing. The second time, there's bottles clanking outside. You open the door, there's nothing there. The third time you do something, you're something on the roof, and there's nothing there. And the fourth time, that's when you hit them. But you've set them up, and they're like, every time they start to maybe sit back, and then boo, here it is, it's the jump scare. Use the die roll to determine how many times you throw something at them, and then it shows up. And I mean, or as Jay said, just if you're limited on time, hit them and run. It's one possibility. It's not game. It's not going to break the game.
Yeah, so I love jump scare. Like I said last time, I love the randomness. 50% chance, no problem. Just go on. And then you can scale it however you want, however it's needed. And it just says that it's some insidious thing that attacks. It doesn't have to be that powerful. It could be something ethereal that comes out and attacks and then goes away. And the party doesn't even have to fight. It's like one attack that came in. So you don't have to set up, Gospog or threats that need to be in a fight. You could just have something attack. You could even have something like, I'm thinking the Army of
Ghost.
Darkness, where they have the Necronomicon and it's open and he's fighting to, and it's, the book is trying to attack you type thing. You could have it any way that you want, and I love those open-ended ones. So let's move on. Marked for Death, which was the thing that my players hated the most in Classic Torg. You get a marked for death, and you get a marked for death, and you get a marked for death. But in Torg Eternity, it is a Cosm card, and it says, play as your hero suffers 1 or more wounds. The injury is completely negated, but you may not soak further wounds or shock this scene. Shock and wounds may be recovered by other means normally. So, Jay, what is your thoughts on Marked for Death?
This is a very potent card. I have seen some crazy stuff happen from it. First of all, if you're out of possibilities, it's a no-brainer. It's great, especially if one of the other players just took all your possibilities. Damned. But I have seen players use this proactively to do things which would guarantee their deaths. Jumping out of helicopters onto an exploding battleship and playing this, totally fine. They had to get fished out of the water afterwards from all the zombies, but still, that was later. So this, if you use it right, this can really save you, but it's kind of like it's the last hurrah, because after that, you can't soak, so you're kind of at the mercy of everyone. On the other hand, if you're disconnected and you couldn't soak anyway, oh well, it doesn't really matter. So this is a lot going for it. No corruption test needed. Doesn't really mess with the other players at all. So yeah, this is a great one to have. It's a good back pocket. It's not a martyr, but it can almost be used in the same way to like guarantee you get something done, or at least get somewhere. And yeah, just really good.
Mark, your thoughts on Marked for Death?
This has a great short-term benefit that, if you just got blasted for 6 wounds because the big bad is just that bad and had dice that exploded all over your face, and you're already down 2 wounds, play it. As Jay said, it's a no-brainer. At that point, you're like, nope, not today. Not going to happen. Now you got to go run and hide, though, because you might as well start putting those possibilities on your attack rolls, because you can't soak for the rest of the scene. But it's only a scene. So if you're strategic with it, as Jay pointed out in other ways, and you look at the way the battle's flowing or whatever, you play it at the right time, it may not matter. You may come out smelling like a rose on the other side of this if you play it at the right time. You could come out dead too, but I mean, you know what?
Them's the breaks.
Them's the breaks. That's right. That's how the cookie crumbles. Um, Beyond that, it's if you've got, especially if you've got a healer in the group who has not yet healed you, yeah, go for it. It's only a Rorsch. Look at.
Yeah, this is one of those cards that it does have the disadvantage of not being able to soak, which can be hurtful. But if you play it right, you can do some really cool things with it. Or if you just absolutely need it for whatever the case, whether it's you don't have possibilities or you're already at a -3 to your roll and you're not certain that you can get it. It is I don't take damage. It's just I'll need other healing, whether that's a slap patch, a healing potion, a miracle, resting, whatever. There's other things, but you just can't soak, and soak's just
I mean, you know who
integral.
else can't soak? Dead people.
Yes, exactly. So, so very, very good one. I think the benefits outweigh the penalties, the negatives. So let's move on to 6. Sunset. Play when traveling to some sinister destination due to delays, strange weather, storms, etc. It is dusk or otherwise dark when the party arrives. All Storm Knights gain 2 possibilities. So Jay, your thoughts on Sunset?
A tip for players: this is a no-brainer card. Play it as soon as you get it. 90% of Orrorsh adventures have you showing up at the place at nighttime anyways. So it's going to happen. You may as well get 2 possibilities. And if it wasn't going to happen, then yes, it might make things a little bit more difficult for you, but not really by that much. The only, really, what's the worst that's going to come from this when you think about it? Vampires are running around. If it's a vampire adventure, you're probably going to be at night. Anything with Cloak of Darkness can be basically taken care of with a flashlight anyway. So, yeah, always a good one. This is one of those cards that people think is really bad, and I always tell people that the Orrorsh Cosm cards are actually very good for players, and they rarely believe me. This is one of them. Always use it.
Mark, your thoughts on Sunset?
You're absolutely right. Use it. Because it is going to happen, which is why this is my least favorite card in the entire 10 out of these 10, because it's going to happen. That showing up at the place you have to be where the bad guy is, you're going to show up at sunset or just after, just before, just after, or during. That's just how it's written. So this doesn't really do anything that isn't already happening. If I were going to have you show up just before, I would kind of advance it along. I know what my threat is, and if my threat does have Cloak of Darkness or something, guess what? It's dark. And this is just making problems for you. Because that's, in my opinion, I'm going to give you 2 possibilities. You get problems along with those 2 possibilities in Orrorsh. You have to. And you're already going to show up at sunset anyway, so I got to give you some other problems. That's why from a Game Master standpoint, I don't like this card much, because it's just, here's free 2 possibilities, no big deal. From the player standpoint, it's, toss it out there. Let's get 2 possibilities. We're going to show up at sunset anyway.
Yeah, I agree with Jay in that this is one that the players might be hesitant to play, even though they shouldn't be. Oh no, we don't want to be in Orrorsh in nighttime. Well, you are going to be at some point. And even if you had the nicest game master who was like, yes, you'll get there at dawn, and you play this, you as a player are setting up the mood to be a horror genre, and that's part of the theme anyway. So even if it was you'll get there by noon, high noon, I would throw this down to get the 2 possibilities, because as Jay said, the darkness penalties, you usually have means to alleviate them in some way, shape, or form. So
You should have means. If you don't, get them.
okay.
There's your requisition in your streetwise.
So let's move on to 7 sinister secrets. Play to gain all the information available on some foe, mystery, or secret. Make a corruption test. So, Jay, your thoughts on sinister secrets?
Potentially adventure breaking. As Mark alluded to earlier, a lot of things that require corruption tests don't actually, like, they're not dependent on succeeding at the corruption test. You get the bonus, and then you make a corruption test. It's not reliant on passing, so you're going to get the info regardless. If you become a mewling monster afterwards, that's a whole other story. But as I have mentioned, like, I do see a lot of players being very corruption test averse, but this card is good enough that they will sometimes do it, if even if they're not like corruption based character. I believe it was specified in the fact that this can give secrets for nightmares, right?
I did look, and I didn't. In my quick look before we started, I didn't see this card listed, but I was thinking that something had been stated about this card.
Yeah, I have there is a card later, I think, that specifically mentions it in the booster, but if I was GMing this, I don't think I would give all of the information. I would give one of a nightmare's
The current
pieces of
secret.
information. Yeah. Because the thing is, the way nightmares are set up, and any adventure operating with a nightmare, is it's been set up to give you time to find these things. There are one or two adventures, like very short adventures, that do just have like a random nightmare and you have no way of knowing. So that's where something like this could come in handy. But otherwise, it's just kind of shortchanging the adventure a lot of the times. Like, imagine if you were playing a mystery adventure, like some Agatha Christie kind of thing, a murder mystery, and then someone was able to just like play a card and find out who did
Sherlock
it.
Holmes it.
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes walks in and
Yeah, or like
Clue.
Sherlock walks
Yeah,
in
right
and
off the
starts talking, and you're like, oh god. So yeah, I mean, this is a this can be a frustrating one as a GM. As a player, it's probably worth it if you're stuck. I would almost allow people to. I would almost rather let people play it as an idea card, if they're stuck and don't know what to do, rather than just give away everything. But yeah, I mean, I guess either way you look at it, it's powerful. It's good for the players. It's just annoying to deal with as a GM.
Mark, your thoughts on Sinister Secrets?
I like this card a lot. I don't like it as a GM. I like it as a player because, as Jay pointed out, this is potentially game breaking. I consider it the Orrorsh super idea because it pretty much states you get all the information available on some foe, mystery, or secret. And the way that, as Jay pointed out, the way that nightmares are set up with multiple secrets, you're typically researching one secret or the other at a time, or you're aware of only a secret and you're not aware of other ones. And I would not give you. It says to give you all the information available on some foe. Available. Well, secrets sometimes are reliant one on the other, and so I'm not giving you all of the secrets on my nightmare because he's the big bad, and you need to work for that because that's kind of what Orrorsh is. You got to go investigate this stuff. So if you've got 4 acts set up with a nightmare that shows up in Act 1, and you get 1 secret, and then you've got 1 secret per act set up, I'm not giving you all 4 secrets in Scene 1, Act 1 of a 4-act adventure. But I will give you one, and the one that makes the most sense for where you are, what you're doing, and what you're investigating at the time. But it doesn't make sense to give you the secret that has nothing to do with either the warehouse that you don't know about yet, on the journal that you haven't discovered he even wrote, in the blood of the person you didn't know was dead. Okay, so maybe you discover, all of a sudden, okay, wait, this body is somehow connected to Mr. Barnaby, who shows up with his hatchet what's that all about? Okay, well, that's connected this way. Boom, 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 boom. And something about where she was going with this journal and a warehouse. I don't know. And so you give them hints to where they can go so that it pays off. But yeah, I'm not giving you. I'll give you like if they've got immunities or if they've got weaknesses, that kind of thing, defenses and those things are, or something that you can use against the foe that's not necessarily a secret. Yeah, I'll give you all of that because when they show up, that just makes battling them. Oh, we learned a thing. We know how to fight them, but we don't know how to get rid of them permanently because we don't know the secrets. So yeah, I'll give you all of that, and then I'll throw you one secret for this.
So here's how I would handle sinister secrets. I would give them all the information when that information was available. So it would be like succeeding every single test when you get to the evidence analysis or the find.
Okay, just auto success on the secret when you show up.
But you don't need to roll. You get it, but you have to be there. And that would be my compromise of instead of, hey, here's an info dump that there's no in-game story on how it happened, but not quite you only learn one thing. So I would be now if the thing appeared at the beginning, I'd probably give them, like Mark said, all their abilities, all their special abilities. Here's all the stuff. But as we there's the secrets for nightmares that the party usually has to go and discover. If that's part of the plot, part of the game, and you do have kind of that game master table social contract of we're sitting down to play a trifling matter, then you actually want to play it. You don't want to go from Act 1 to, the Act 7 and just, okay, this is how it is. Here's all the secrets. So that's what I would do. I would just say, okay, you're guaranteed when you find the place that has the secrets, you can put everything together. And if say this card comes up in Act 3 and you haven't figured out everything from Act 1 and 2 because you failed some rolls, I would then allow the character to go, oh, wait, that journal linked up with this. And we miss, because Mark, you like success levels. So they only got a good success. Well, now you piece those things together, and I'll give you the outstanding success because you play this later after you've already got that information. So,
yeah, but so with success levels on these kinds of things, and I completely agree with your interpretation. I would do that absolutely. But if you're in your scenario where you're like, this is an auto succeed on those 4 secrets when you get to the spot where it's germane, right?
Right.
Because I like success levels up front. If I were going to do that, I would have to tell. I would feel obligated to tell my players that they're making a decision. And we'll give you one secret now, or I will give you a good success on each of the secrets that when you get there. But they're stuck with a good. They don't get a chance at outstanding because they've made a decision, right? Then that's the consequence of you get it all. I'm just going to give you it at a good level, all 4, or all the secrets that are available is probably what I would say. Or you can take one now at outstanding, and the rest you have to roll on. Because, like you said, I like levels of success. When somebody uses a card I'll let them use a card to circumvent the roll on that. But I'll say, well, that card's only going to get you to the good level. If you're okay with that, and then let's run with it. And a lot of times their skill set's not high enough to be able to have a shot at the outstanding, and so they're like, yeah, good's good, and so off we go. So
various interpretations on Sinister Secrets. I think we all think that it's a pretty decent card. It's really good. For the players, it's absolutely wonderful. For the game masters, don't just read it and go, I'm going to yank this card because I don't like it. Now, if that's what you decide after you've listened to all of our various ways that we would handle it, that's your call. But I would suggest using one of our alternatives to incorporate it, use the card, and have it help the party, but not be the Sherlock Holmes who just sees the 2 clues and pieces everything.
The ink spot together on the collar, which tells them what they had for dinner last night.
Right. That tells them all 5 of the main nightmare secrets. But
actually, that brings up a bit of a question. How do you guys role play this? Is it intuition, or is it like the whispers of corruption in their mind?
Oh, I would do it whatever fits my mood at that point.
Situational.
Yeah,
100% situational. It
I
depends if they're looking up in a library, then they find the right book, or they find this, that, or the other. If they're looking for people and they're talking to the right people, whatever. It's situational for me.
if they're in the middle of a seance, then the
Yeah.
medium's going to
Absolutely.
start spouting stuff. So let's move on to 8. Unholy interest. Play on a villain. He or she takes a special interest in your hero and does everything possible not to cause her permanent harm. This might be a romantic connection or a brotherly kinship. This ends only when the fiend perishes. Make a corruption test once per scene when the villain is encountered. So, Jay, your thoughts on unholy interest?
Once per scene sounds rough until you realize it's that you encountered this villain. So it's really up to how much the GM makes them a recurring villain, I suppose. This card is kind of infamous in my group because there was an adventure in a mixed Nile Orrorsh zone, and they ended up playing this on Mobius. So Mobius became obsessed with Father Basil of the Cyber Papacy, and it kind of changed my campaign in a way where Mobius became obsessed with cyber Catholicism and was like looking for things to steal from it to add to his own religion. But yeah, this is a good one just in general because it can really save you if things are going poorly. Now, the nice thing about this is you don't have to play it. So you can save it until things are dire, and then it's basically just a corruption test to get out. Now, it technically only saves you. Doesn't really say anything about them caring about the rest of your party, but it depends on how persuasive your character is, I suppose. Or you could just distract them, something like that. But keep in mind, it doesn't turn the villain into an idiot as well. So this can be a good one. If the villain becomes a recurring character, the amount of corruption tests could become an issue. Just so be aware of that. But
don't play on the Gaunt Man.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably going to have to do corruption tests around the Gaunt Man anyways. Yeah, I mean, in most games, you're not going to be going up against the same villain constantly. If it was like a Nile villain that wasn't quite Mobius's, like if this was on the Hooded Cobra or something, then yeah, that might be an issue because he just keeps friggin' popping back up all the time. Yeah, but otherwise you're probably safe. It might come up 1 or 2 times in the future, and it's like a built-in campaign ad. So yeah, it's a nice one, very flavorful, and it's a emergency break.
Mark, your thought on unholy interest?
So from an Orrorsh standpoint, it's perfect to play on a nightmare because it's going to keep coming back for the 2, 3, 4, however many secrets it's got. And so every time it comes back, it's not going to be trying to kill you. It could be very stymieing, or very vulnerable, very vulnerable you, and letting its minions do you in. Because like Jay said, they're not stupid. It could also be GMs don't let this, if you're player, I would not let this go to waste on just a mook. If they play it on a mook for whatever reason, give the mook a name and at least have the mook show up in one more scene, at least one. Or suddenly now you got to scramble and figure out how this mook has become the lieutenant of the bad guy and whatever. And now, and as Jay said, change the fabric of your campaign, and because players love to have agency, and when they see that the things that they do matter in the story, that's always fun. And as a GM, it's always fun for me as a writing exercise and as a gaming exercise to take the unexpected and incorporate it into the story that I already had, that then becomes our story instead of my story, that's why the GM gets to have fun at the table, just like the players get to have fun, is that we're telling our story I'm putting the seed down, but everybody at the table gets to modify it into something that's theirs. And this card is a good way to do that when they play it on somebody. So you all of a sudden that mook becomes Bob the Invincible or the affectionate Wuhan, or whatever. And then it changes how they react. Beyond that, I don't really like the card that much because it doesn't really get you anything other than it's kind of a it's kind of a get out of combat free card, really, because they can't do any permanent damage to you. They could make you very vulnerable, let the minions suddenly focus on you, but that's kind of almost cheating if you've got 3 mooks per Storm Knight and then the boss. And instead of 3 mooks per Storm Knight, you've got 6 on the one Storm Knight because the boss can't mess with the one Storm Knight because of this card. That's but still, making you very vulnerable so that the mooks can have a chance to hit you easily. Sure, I do that all day.
So I'll say, as a player, I love this card. I can't even remember if I know I had this card, and I can't remember if I used it or not. But I do remember that my character was not a combat person in any way, shape, or form in Orrorsh, going through a trifling matter. I was the find evidence analysis and did potions that were non-combative potions. So I had like the liquid light and the thing that allowed other people to see in the dark and the powder that you put on so people or threats that had, I think it was Cloak of Darkness, can't see you. I had all of those, nothing offensive whatsoever. Started off with a revolver and I gave my silver bullets to somebody else so that because they would do better with them than me, and I had this card in case I was ever the focus because I had a 5 toughness. So that was my thing. So it is kind of a cool little backup, and I knew okay, then if it's not harming me, it's going to harm somebody else, but at least I'm not going to die. Because there were a couple of times where I was like, you guys are fighting, I can't. I'm gonna step back here and watch and do some tricks now and then.
True team player.
Yes, very much so. Okay, so let's move on to number 9, Mark of Terror. Play after witnessing some horrible event or creature. Your character gains a physical mark, such as a white streak in his hair, a strangely intense stare, or some other tell. Gain 1 possibility. Jay, your thoughts on Mark of Terror?
It's a free possibility. What's not to like? You don't have to fail a fear test or anything. It's just you have to see something horrible, and it lets you add a little bit of character to your character. I think someone who played this in my group just went bald suddenly. But it does give a permanent change to your character, so it's kind of neat that way. It's not like the most impactful card in the world, but it is a nice little characterful thing to add to a campaign. So yeah, it's a good one. I like it.
Mark, your thoughts on Mark of Terror?
This is like Sunset. It's gonna happen. You're in Orrorsh. You're going to see some horrible event or creature. So just, warm this up as soon as the GM flips a drama card, toss this out on the table, get your possibility, and then describe what happens or what, you get your scar that goes through your eye or whatever. Because this is not like Smiling Deceiver or something where you're covering up some mark of corruption. It's just, as Jay said, it's just a character building trait that just make it make sense. Be creative with it. Not so much like you pull, I want to have this thing, and so now I have to shoehorn that into where I am. Instead, go the other direction and say, where are you when you play this card? What mark did you just pick up because of what's going on around you? And that gives, now you have place and event to connect that to, and you have a story behind it instead of trying to convince somebody that the thing that you want on your character happened here because whatever.
So,
but yeah, free possibility.
I like the card. As Jay stated, it's kind of funny that players will always play this card. And the sunset one they're hesitant about, but like all players, it seems like the idea of their character changing in some way going through Orrorsh. Like if there was a card like this in any of the realities, I could see players just loving it. Okay, I get some scars in the living land, and I get a weird little techno bauble and cyberpunk. You know, they would be all for that.
Oh yeah,
and it adds flavor character to the character.
Collect the whole set.
So very, very good card. No real disadvantage, and it's not like it's one of the outsider or where you have lower persuasions. It's more like the other people in Orrorsh are like, oh yeah, you too.
Yeah,
I'm in the White Street Club.
Yeah,
I went to Orrorsh and all I got was his shitty gray hair.
So okay, so let's move on to the last card for today, number 10, Lights Out. All light sources in the area are extinguished. This may only be played in combat and when it matters. It has no effect in broad daylight, for example. All Storm Knights gain 1 possibility. So, Jay, your thoughts on Lights Out?
Keywords, when it matters.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of funny because I think we went to Orrorsh really early when we first started playing. And my group was primarily, it was all like elves, dwarves, and people with occult tech or cybernetics. So every single person could see in the dark. So they didn't carry any flashlights or torches or anything. And they would just constantly be going into dark caves and being totally fine most of the time. And then when they got to Orrorsh, it's like, man, why do these things have such a high toughness all the time? Because they would never shine light and get rid of the cloak of darkness because they could always see. So that was the thing. I had to rule that this card didn't actually do too much to them. If there wasn't an enemy with cloak of darkness, if there was, then yeah, it worked. But if they were in a fight with like just regular werewolves or like bandits on the road or something, then they were not affected by this at all, so I would not let them play it to get possibilities. But if it triggered something's cloak of darkness, then sure. And yeah, but it's a pretty good one. As I said, it is fairly easy to negate the cloak of darkness, so this can also be, if the players only have 1 light, this can get rid of it, and it's 1 possibility each for inconveniencing themselves. There's so many times where it doesn't really do anything that I'm okay with evening it out, because sometimes it might actually be kind of rough and maybe be worth 2 possibilities each, but 1 is probably fair in general. So this is a decent card, average to a slightly above average, I would say. Thematic, but depends on the characters too.
And Mark, your thoughts on Lights Out?
So it says all light sources in the area. I have a small understanding of night vision, having used actual night vision, and it's a source. You can make the case that it is a source of illumination, hence the Bellevue cyber eye that allows you to see as a source of illumination. So I would treat this like Mage Dark. If you want the possibility, you have to be inconvenienced. And I'm with Jay. If you're not going to be inconvenienced, you don't get the possibility. If you're going to be inconvenienced, you get the possibility. In which case, that cyber eye doesn't work anymore, or whatever, or your something is interfering with your inherent genetics that make you see in the dark, like Mage Dark. That states dwarves still lose their ability to see in the dark. Okay, here's your possibility. Life's a little more difficult because it does say all light sources. And am I stretching it? Yeah, a little bit, maybe. But again, if I'm going to give you a possibility, you have to be inconvenienced because there are some other free ones in there. I don't like this one being one of them, so I don't play this one as one of them.
So I tend to enjoy Lights Out for the fact that the players choose. It's not a automatic, as soon as the combat starts or whatever. So the players are choosing to inconvenience themselves. And I would do any on light sources I would require if say somebody has say the liquid light and it's out and they're holding it like a torch, that goes out. If they have one in their backpack, then I would make it an action or have to be dealt with later, so that it's not just an instant. We get the light back. Or just as a game master, you could determine if you just want it to everything is eliminated permanently. Anything stored, anything new, you can't light the torches anymore for some reason if you want to go that drastic.
Ooh, that's harsh.
Yeah, that's very harsh. Table variation, make sure your players understand how harsh you're going, because they're the ones who are going to play this card. So before they play it and have a worse thing happen after they play it, when they're playing it, or as a table, you can come up with what you as a table agree on, but you can go with I have a flashlight in my backpack. Can I have that be an action to take out and start? Some game masters I could see saying yes, other ones just going, nope, this whole combat is going to be in the darkness. All sources are out, but make sure your players understand what is going on before you throw it at them. Having said that, those are the first 10 cards of Orrorsh. I think for the most part, they all pretty much fit the flavor of Orrorsh. And even though there is a lot of things that might make players hesitate, and it seems like our opinion, they're not that bad. There's ways to mitigate it, or there's a good enough bonus that in certain cases, the penalty or the bad thing happening is offset by what the good thing is for the most part. So having said that, do write us, email us at torgdcd@gmail.com. And until next time, we hope you have fun in your own Cosmverse. Bye.